The most news in the morning. CNN's American Morning. Weekday, 6 a.m. Eastern.
A box cutter taken to a Van Gogh painting, a beautiful Van Gogh painting, to free it from its frame. It was a well-executed heist of a painting worth more than $50 million. It hurts my heart even to say that. Thieves stole the Van Gogh from the Mahmoud Khalil Museum in Cairo. Joining me with the details to figure out how this all happened is an expert in this field, Robert Wittman, a former FBI undercover agent who has recovered more than 200 million, I almost said thousand, in stolen artwork during his 20-year career. Robert, thank you so much for joining me. How does this happen in this day and age? Essentially, it seemed in broad daylight. How does this happen? Is this a usual art theft using box cutters?
Well, good morning, Kate. Yeah, it's a shame. It really is, because when someone goes into a museum or anywhere and they cut a painting out of a frame, they're doing irreparable damage. I mean, that's the type of damage that, many times cannot be conserved. So, especially with Van Gogh. When Van Gogh did his paintings, sometimes the paint was very, very thick. And, when you have a painting like that where you cut it out of the frame, you lose paint, you lose pieces of the actual canvas. It's a terrible situation.
So I was looking at the details of the situation at this museum. Only 7 of the dozens of surveillance cameras were working. None of the alarms were working. My first thought was, really? Like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Does that imply to you, in your experience, that this might be an inside job?
Well, there's 2 parts to that. First, I think the economic downturn around the world has affected museums internationally. Not long ago, just in May, the Parisian Museum of Modern Art had a heist where 5 paintings were stolen worth more than $120 million. In that situation, again, the alarm systems were not working properly. We also know that more than 88%, Kate, of museum heists have some type of insider component. It doesn't always mean that someone who works there is involved in the actual theft. But, people talk, they talk about situations, and when security systems have been down for a long period of time, the word gets around.
So where do the authorities go from here? Obviously, the hunt is on, even though there was some misinformation to begin with that they thought they'd actually retrieve the painting. Moving on from that, where do they go from here? Lack security, the security systems in place weren't working. What clues do they have then to work off of to find these people and find the painting?
Well, there has to be forensic examination of the frame to see if the individuals touched the frame. I think there was some video in the museum itself. That has to be checked very closely. I think the next thing they'll probably be doing will be looking for any kind of video outside the museum. During the whole day, I'm sure there are areas within 100 yards of the museum that have video cameras, and hopefully they might be able to see a car, a suspicious vehicle, something of that nature. And then put out feelers. I think the Egyptians have a very, very good intelligence service, a good law enforcement service, and I'm sure they're out scouring the streets.
One thing that came up when we started talking about this story this morning is, and on the flip side of this story, what happens to the painting now? Is there actually a market out there for this Van Gogh now that we're all talking about it? Is there a market there? Can it be sold?
Well, that's one thing I say in my book, Priceless. The true art in an art theft is not the stealing, it's the selling. Throughout my career, as you said earlier, we had done numerous undercover operations and cases. And usually, Kate, we recover these artworks when they come back to market. And whether it's coming back to market at auction or at a flea market or at an antique shop or being sold to the police undercover, that's when these pieces come back to market and are recovered. So this piece, again, there's nothing that they can do with it. It's so well known and famous. Everyone's on the lookout for it. For them to try to sell it, it's not going to work out for them.
Well, you mentioned another high-profile heist that happened just recently, the one in Paris. Also, there's one in the south of France and in Zurich. I mean, a string of these art heists recently. In your experience, what's the likelihood that this piece of art will actually be recovered, and in what time frame?
Well, this piece was stolen in the 1970s as well.
Right.
It was recovered within a 10-year period. That's right. So, my experience says that these pieces will be back. I'd say a 90 to 95% chance of recovery. It might take a while. I remember there were cases I was involved with. One case was a theft of one of the original copies of the Bill of Rights. It took us 130 years, Kate, to get that one back. Other ones might be 6 months. Depends on the situation. I have a feeling this one's going to come back pretty quickly because the damage that was done to the painting is going to make it unsaleable. So at some point, they're going to get smart and return it.
Well, that's the horrible part about it, the damage. Oh, my goodness. Robert Wittman, thank you so much. Great speaking with you this morning. You can read more about Robert Wittman's work and experience in cracking the case of stolen artwork in his book, Priceless. Pick that up. It's a good read.